That's number one. You kind of reset.
Painful, tender to the touch. May also
Same shoulder length, and the other. Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Real Health with Brandi and Amir. I am Dr. Amir Rashidian, a chiropractor, and this is
Brandi.
Brandi's my other half, and the boss. So this is Real Health, where we talk about how to feel better, get stronger, live longer, and feel
Younger. Can I just start with an apology?
Of course.
I have Jim here today. No offense to Jim. Jim's great. I'm sure he has great hair. But I definitely did not plan my day. I was running, trying to gather everything, and I hit the gym today and I forgot my curling iron. So I don't feel like I'm at my best. So those of you who are watching, if you want to switch just to audio, totally get it.
No comment on this side.
He's a smart man.
I think you're beautiful. And you have nothing to worry about. Maybe you guys can comment below and just say your hair looks fine.
I wasn't actually fishing for compliments.
Well, right. But you know what? Thank you for still doing this, because you could have canceled. You could have said,
true.
We're going to not record today. And so I appreciate you
I'm a
being
trooper.
here. And I think we're still going to have a great podcast. And so on the Real Health podcast, we take the latest news and we get the articles, we summarize them for you, and then we talk about how it can be applied to your life, how you can use the information, and how it can benefit you, your family members, your relationships, your quality of life.
Absolutely.
So we've got a great set of articles today.
We have a lot to
We're
dive
gonna
into.
jump right in. I believe this is episode number 16.
I'm glad you
So,
guys track that, because
this is
I cannot
great.
keep track. I don't even know how
I don't
old
know.
I
If
am.
it's not 16, I apologize. I think it's 16. 15 was the last one, so mathematically speaking.
It seems to make the most sense.
15 plus 1. I got a calculator right here. 16. So very good. So our goal was let's hit 20 and see how it goes.
We are almost there.
And so if you guys want us to continue after 20, just support us. That would be fantastic. I'd love that. You know, I think we'll probably continue after 20 just because we're having a lot of fun and we're getting some good compliments and comments and so on. But really our goal was, let's see if we can do 20 episodes.
Yep.
And so this is 16. And here's the first article. This is from BBC News. Scientists grow whole model of human embryo without sperm or egg.
This is beginning to sound a tad bit sci-fi.
Well, yeah.
Especially considering this is one of the processes in the body that we actually, as much as we know, I feel like we don't know much.
No, I mean, the article said it. They said it's a black box. Black box is medically referred to anything where we don't know the mechanism. We don't know the details of it. It's a black box, which means what happens inside, we have no idea. And the development of the embryo is a black box. No one really knows how the egg and sperm come together and how that process turns into a human, especially
so
the
cool.
first trimester. And so scientists have grown an entity that closely resembles an early human embryo without using sperm, egg, or a womb. The Weizmann Institute team say their embryo model made using stem cells, looks like a textbook example of a real 14-day-old embryo.
Interesting.
So they did use stem cells. They didn't use sperm and egg, but they used stem cells. It even released hormones that turned a pregnancy test positive in the lab.
Wow.
The ambition for embryo models is to provide an ethical way of understanding the earliest moments of our lives. So I thought we weren't alive until we were born.
That is
Some people don't believe we're alive
correct.
until there's a heartbeat, but now the scientists are saying we're alive from day one. First 14 days are earliest moments of our lives.
They better not tell the government that.
Well, and I don't want to start a debate.
But it is a topic that there's a lot of controversy on. So when I start hearing these things, it always makes me go,
Right.
Right. And so that's partly why we do these too, is so that everyone can begin to go,
Right.
That's a fascinating
can we
discrepancy.
Have a healthy discussion, a healthy debate.
That's what we should be
and
having.
Still be friends and still love each other and support each other, tolerate each other, welcome each other, sit with each other, break bread with each other.
Yeah. Not have our information pulled
You know,
from the internet.
just a quick digression. I grew up in Iran. Do you know that in Iran, uh, if you don't talk about religion and politics, they don't think you believe in anything.
Hmm.
And in fact, every dinner party, what you do is when you have dinner, you sit down afterwards with tea and pastries, and the only thing you discuss is religion and politics.
Yep.
And these things, you've been to Iran with
Yeah,
me.
multiple times.
It gets heated, not in a bad way. Like people are laughing. People do raise their voice. We're like, you know what? I can't believe it's this and that. And they go, well, why does this say this? And you know, when you compare this book to that book, this prophet said this and this person said that.
I mean, we had great conversations even about Christianity versus Islam, right?
Right.
Because
We never felt disrespected.
never. Mm-mm.
Never once.
Yeah.
And I wish we could bring that here.
Yeah.
Here, what do they say? You go to someone's house, they go, don't talk about politics, don't talk about religion. I go,
True. What
what else is there? Well, health. Real health. Talk about the Real Health podcast. You'll never know what I heard.
That's right.
You know, Brandi and Amir said this and that. So anyways, back to the article. The first weeks after a sperm fertilizes an egg is a period of dramatic change from a collection of indistinct cells to something that eventually becomes recognizable on a baby scan.
Wow.
This crucial time is a major source of miscarriage and birth defects, but poorly understood. It's a black box, and that's not a cliche. Our knowledge is very limited. So this was a professor at the Wisman Institute.
Wow.
So-
That's a lot. That's a pretty deep topic right there.
Yeah, and you know, you kind of wonder, are they saying this thing is alive? Or because they're only referring to it as a model, they're not saying it's alive.
Right.
And let me tell you how they did it. This is so cool. And after all this, I think it's still a black box. That's the funny part. And I'll
And it
tell
might
you why.
remain that way.
So this has never been done before. Instead of a sperm and egg, the starting material was naive stem cells. I like the word naive.
Yeah.
It means they're undifferentiated.
Okay.
Which were reprogrammed to gain the potential to become any type of tissue in the body. I think that's what naive means, or undifferentiated means. They can become anything. Chemicals were then used to coax these stem cells into becoming 4 types of cells found in the earliest stages of the human embryo. So these are the 4 types. There's the epiblast cells, which become the embryo proper, or the fetus. There's the trophoblast cells. Those of you who took embryology in college, you remember these names. Trophoblast cells, which become the placenta. There's the hypoblast cells, which become the supportive yolk sac.
Uh-huh.
How cool is this whole process?
So neat.
And then there's the extraembryonic mesoderm cells. And a total of 120 of these cells were mixed in a precise ratio. And then, this is the part that's cool, the scientists step back and watch. So they took
That would, I think, be my favorite part.
So they chemically induced the stem cell to become these 4 types. Then they took 120 of them,
Mix
and
them together.
threw them into a vial, and then they watched.
They mixed them up. You forgot to mix them up.
I don't know if they say mix them up.
I thought that's what he said.
No,
Oh.
it says transformed into 4 types of cells.
Uh-huh.
Well, cells mixed and grown in shaker. Yeah, so they put in a shaker.
Shook them up a little bit.
Yeah, you were right. See,
I hear things.
You're half scientist. So anyways, they spontaneously form embryo-like structure. So which basically they're saying it's still a black box.
So amazing though when you think about it, but I don't know what's more amazing, right? Let's I don't want to digress too much, but I don't know if it's more amazing that they were able to artificially, chemically, create a 14-day, blastocyst, because that's what it is, right? Is that what it's referred to as, is a blastocyst at that point?
It's an embryo.
Okay.
So it's past the
past the blastocyst stage. So there's a certain number of cells that it has to like double and double and double and double as a blastocyst before it's considered a fetus, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. 'Cause
So-
otherwise, it's just a ball of cells.
Yeah, and I'm thinking back to, we dove into fertility for our first two children, and so this is all like coming back to me because we used to get photos and whatnot of the cells at different, when it was like 4 cells, and then it was like 16 cells,
Yeah.
and like you get to watch the duplication, right? They take images before
It's
they
never
transfer
16.
it back.
It goes
16,
4,
sorry.
8.
Yes.
I guess
So
16
that's
is
where
half,
my
right?
non-scientist
Yeah, you're right.
part came
No,
in.
You're right. You're right. My mistake.
So anyway, I just think it's such a cool process.
Yeah.
But this really speaks more to me to stem cells. How cool are stem
Yeah,
cells?
I mean, undifferentiated stem cells do have the potential to become anything. And like, for example, you could put them in a vial and next to pancreatic cells, and those cells become pancreatic cells. You put them next to liver cells, they become liver cells. In any environment, they take on the identity of that environment. That's how they can use chemicals to create these 4 types of cells,
mean,
the epiblast and the hypoblast.
Think about the potential of healing
Right.
in that regard. That is so cool. And we know that it's being studied. So
So it says about 1% of the mixture began the journey of spontaneously assembling themselves into a structure that resembles but is not identical to a human embryo. So 99% of them did not.
interesting.
1% turned into something that resembles a human embryo. And the embryo models were allowed to grow and develop until they were comparable to an embryo 14 days after fertilization. In many countries, this is the legal cutoff for normal embryo research.
Wow.
There's even talk of improving in vitro fertilization, or also known as IVF, success rates by helping to understand why some embryos fail, or using the models to test whether medicines are safe during pregnancy. So I think this is pretty neat to create this fake embryo and then test, to experiment on it as opposed to real embryos. Legally distinct. The work also raises the question of whether embryo development could be mimicked past the 14-day stage. And that's the part that kind of you go, wow, like what would it turn into if they allowed it to go more than 14 days? I'm assuming it eventually dies, but it needs to be connected to a mom that feeds it. If they could figure out how to feed it, I don't know.
I mean,
This
it
would-
is a fascinating and a little scary.
It says this would not be illegal, even in the UK, as embryo models are legally distinct from embryos. They are not normal human embryos. They're embryo models, but they're very close to them. I'll read one last thing, and then I want to comment. The researchers stress it would be unethical, illegal, and actually impossible to achieve a pregnancy using these embryo models.
Interesting. I wonder
Impossible.
why.
Well, I don't think there's any genetic material in them.
Oh, okay.
I wonder. Because you got 23 chromosomes from
Right.
your mom, 23 more from your dad, and you got an X chromosome from each one. I got an X and a Y. My dad gave me his Y. Everybody needs a Y.
Everybody needs why.
That's why you got married to me. You didn't have your own Y.
I think that was a Gene dad joke. I'm not sure.
Assembling the 120 cells together goes beyond the point an embryo could successfully implant into the lining. So that's another reason, I think, is it cannot implant. It has to be able to be implanted. So they couldn't take this fake embryo, get it to implant
Interesting.
in a womb. So a while back, years ago, we read a book. You remember this book? It was called the Christ Clone Trilogy. Do you remember this?
Okay. I talk about this book series all the time because it is one of my favorites.
And so please, it's not like an endorsement of the book. If you're curious, go and get the book and read it.
It's a good read.
It's 3 books, and basically the premise is it starts out by a team of scientists who go to Turin to examine the Shroud of Turin. Shroud of Turin is what Jesus's body was wrapped in when he was buried in the tomb, and then the shroud stayed there when he was resurrected. And so there's squamous cells, skin cells, in that shroud. In fact,
At the heel.
people who have visited and seen it, you can see like an outline of his body, I guess, with like blood, other tissues, and
Sweat.
so on, sweat, and it's stained with an image of Christ. But what they did was they took squamous cells, skin cells, from the heel of that image, and because there was genetic material in there, they cloned a human from Jesus's genetic material. Obviously, this
So
is
they thought-
science
Right.
fiction; it's not possible to do. But they cloned, and this became a baby and became a human and grew up. And the whole story, the 3 books, the trilogy, is about what happens to this.
Yeah, it's a
embryo.
really, really fun read. So
Yeah. But reading this, that they are synthetically creating embryos now,
Yeah.
reminded me of that.
yeah.
So,
Whew.
all right, we're done with that one.
I think so.
That was a good one. I enjoyed that one. This one I don't want to spend a lot of time on. This is from NBC News, and it says, flesh-eating bacteria lurk in post-hurricane floodwaters. Here's how to stay safe. Cases of Vibrio vulnificus
I'm really glad you're reading that.
infection tend to rise after hurricanes mix fresh rainwater with salty seawater. So salt water is pure.
Right.
In fact, our pool is now salt water because it's safer, it's better than chlorine, and it's still free of bacteria. So salt water is clean.
And you float better.
But yes, I haven't noticed that. Do you float better in our pool?
You're supposed to. In heavily salted water,
Yes.
right?
Well, where were we? Was it Mexico? We were somewhere where I could not sink.
Yeah.
And it was extremely salty.
I'm pretty sure it was somewhere in Mexico. Although
Or
I
the
think when we were in
Caribbean.
Iran, isn't one of the
Well,
the
there's a-
Caspian Sea?
There's a
is-
salt lake.
Is that the Caspian?
No,
Oh,
there's a
okay.
salt lake in Iran near Shiraz.
Oh, okay. And that one's really you are
Oh, you
very
don't-
buoyant.
Yeah, but you don't want to swim in it because like literally like it's solid salt. It's really interesting.
Huh.
It's a weird place. You should Google images of the salt lake in Iran. Anyways, in the wake of Hurricane Idalia, this can happen in any hurricane. Health officials warned of an invisible threat in the lingering floodwaters, which is I don't want to pronounce it again because I did a really good job the first time. It's that bacterial infection.
Maybe Sean can like dub that in
Vibrio vulnificus.
throughout the
and
article.
paste, 'cause I can't pronounce it twice. But I have an excuse. I'm from Iran. The rare and potentially deadly type of flesh-eating bacterium shouldn't be taken lightly. So it's pretty serious.
I'm glad we didn't read this before we went to Florida right during the hurricane.
We did, yeah, but we didn't swim in. It didn't rain when we were there. Like it didn't
It rained a lot.
at night.
Yeah.
Well, we did have that one big storm. But anyways, you have to. I think it's saying you have to go in areas where the salt water gets really diluted by rainwater.
Gotcha.
And there's other puddles. Like I don't think you can dilute the ocean
Correct.
with.
Yeah,
with
it sounds
rain.
like it was like pools that
Yeah.
form
I
when
think-
the tide
or
pulls.
floods.
Right.
Like when the water floods the streets and so on, you see people walking through these floods. That's the water that's dangerous. So if you have cuts on your feet,
Yeah,
you
you gotta be
wash your
super
feet,
careful.
disinfect your feet after walking in waters like that. Where Idalia surges left behind standing water were most at risk for Vibrio bacteria. Vibrio thrive in estuaries, inlets, and other areas of warm, brackish water that combine ocean water and fresh water. Hurricanes are good at creating these conditions,
Yeah.
especially because they come out during the warm seasons.
Correct.
It's not cold. Cold kills bacteria too. In fact, like in our office, we have toys that kids can play with when they come in to see us for chiropractic services. We'll put those toys in the freezer
Yeah.
to disinfect them,
24
because
hours.
You can't boil a teddy bear
Right.
to disinfect it, and
So
you don't
hard
want to.
surfaces you can wipe down with a nice
Right.
green cleaner, I'll
We
say.
don't have any teddy bears, but anyways, there are certain things.
Any
There's-
plush toys, throw in the freezer.
There's dolls and toys, but you freeze them and you kill all the bacteria. So, anyways, bacteria infect an estimated 80,000 people in the United States every year, killing about 100. So 100 out of 80,000 die with this flesh-eating bacteria. I just don't like anything that's flesh-eating. That's according to
Agreed.
the CDC. Those numbers tend to rise in the wake of hurricanes. In the week before Hurricane Ian last year, there were no cases of Vibrio infections in the area where the storm made landfall. The week after Ian stormed through, 38 people became infected. 3 people had to have at least one leg amputated, and 11 died.
Okay. So it's usually not during the hurricane. It's going to be after,
Yes.
after those waters recede and you're left with those murky puddles of sea
Same thing
water
happened with
and
Hurricane Katrina.
correct,
back
which
in
was
2005.
devastating. We were actually in Iran during that and we were watching it on
BBC.
BBC. And I will tell you, we saw things through BBC that you guys did not see locally.
It was
The
devastating.
news
Yeah,
articles
it-
initially that were coming out were very
Yeah,
different.
because they don't censor certain things in Iran. They censor everything except
Other
like
people's news.
the gory, gruesome stuff.
Yes.
Use your imagination. But it was literally like you're watching a really terrible horror movie, but it was footage of what happened with Hurricane Katrina. So my heart goes out to all those people who survived that
Yeah.
and saw that firsthand. I can't imagine being there
Yeah.
in New Orleans and seeing the devastation.
We were
and-
there just this year or end of last year, and
We
it
were there
looked
last year.
night and day different because we were down
We
there
were there in, I
shortly
think,
after.
2007, 2000, yeah,
Yeah.
a year and a half later, we went and looked around, and there was still a lot of destruction there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, how do Vibrio infections occur? Like I said, it's if you have a cut on your ankle, it can get in. It can get very quickly. It can grow fast. Within 16 hours, that's the incubation period.
Wow.
So within 16 hours, you've got symptoms. The wound gets larger, redder, more painful. Antibiotics are required as fast as possible. This isn't one of those things where you say, let's wait and see.
Yeah.
Like take the antibiotics and then once you're cured, take some probiotics. These are the fastest growing bacteria known to man. And now it's interesting. Eating raw oysters is the second way people become infected.
Interesting.
Oysters eat their food by filtering water through gills. Just realize that you're eating a live animal and you're eating the intestinal contents of whatever it ate, which typically is Vibrio.
Ooh. Wow. I'm not an oyster eater, so I do not have to worry about that.
Yeah, sorry for those of you who love oysters.
Yeah.
Raw.
Sean is one of them.
Raw. You like raw oysters or cooked? Okay, well, good.
Now,
All right.
after this, are you going to wonder whether or not you should be eating raw?
Just eat some ginger with it.
Ginger is really
Ginger
that'll
tends to disinfect
It does.
the GI tract. That's why they give you ginger with sushi.
or onion.
Onion can do it as well if you don't mind the breath. I like onion. And my own breath rarely bothers me.
We have a rule in our house. If we're going to be eating something like raw garlic and raw onion, we look to the other person and ask permission or ask if they are going to be eating it as well. So it's just a
And
nice
sometimes
thing
it's
to do.
like, you first. And she goes, no, you first. And I'm afraid I'll eat, and then she won't eat. And then I can't kiss her. So I always go, you first.
Boy, I feel like we're having a lot of fun today.
Every year it's increasing, they say. So I guess that's a scary thing. Anyways, I don't want to go through the whole article. You get the idea. Just be careful with warm water that's mixed from rain and dirt and everything else.
And raw oysters.
And yeah, raw oysters. I'm sure there's measures they take to keep them safe and clean. So
Yeah,
I think we could do one more.
I think so.
This is a longer article. It's from Fox News. It says these 10 nutrition mistakes could be taking years off your life. Here's what to do instead. Want to live longer? Dr. Brett Osborne, neurologist and longevity expert, says avoid these blunders at all costs.
I'm very excited to hear this.
Well, I'm guilty of most of them in the past, but we've started a health journey that really incorporates some of these.
Good.
Adults who stick to a healthy diet are much less likely to experience obesity, heart disease, diabetes, and even some types of cancer, says the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Nutrition is thought to dictate about 80% of one's health, and obesity irrefutably shaves nearly 10 years off a person's life. So, I mean, that if you go, oh, that is scary, but what if you lived to be 110 and without this you would have been 120? I mean, so it's so relative, but still, you don't want to do things that shorten your lifespan.
10 years is 10 years.
For me, it has nothing to do with how long I live. That doesn't matter.
How well?
It's how well I live. Can I still get out of bed and jump and
we
run
still do a
and
pickup game with our boys?
play and enjoy my life? Yeah.
We're on the cusp of 50, right? So we're and isn't it so fun once you get there? You're like, that's not old at all.
50 is not
Right?
old, yeah.
50 is the new 30.
I remember the TV show 30 something. And
Yeah.
I used to watch that show and go, I never watched the full episode, but I remember like I'd watch the opening credits and then change the channel because I was like, that show's for old people.
Oh, I watched it.
I'm young. Was it good?
Yeah, I liked it.
But 30 something was considered old.
And, so knowing that we're embarking on 50, we're right there. I really began to look, and I never feel my age. I forget how old I am most of the time. I ask you, and you usually give me the correct answer. But man, I started looking, going, I don't like how I'm feeling. Right? What are some things that we need to begin to change so that I have my energy back? And I have, and some of that was stress for an elongated period of time. Some of it was getting into or out of good habits and back into some not so great habits. It's so easy to do. I don't know why I got on that tangent, but go ahead.
Yeah. So 10 years.
10 years.
This is Dr. Brett Osborne, the neurologist. He's a board certified neurosurgeon in West Palm Beach, Florida, and the author of Get Serious, a Neurosurgeon's Guide to Optimal Health and Fitness.
Let's see what he got.
10 mistakes. Mistake number 1, he said, is consuming excessive sugars, and he calls that the root of all evil.
Agreed.
Don't tell the Bible that, but
some say it's money. It's not. It's sugar.
That's right.
For sure.
Well, the Bible says the love of money or lust for money is the
Correct.
root of all evil. There's a lot of evils in the world, folks. It immediately crosses the bowel lining and enters the bloodstream, causing a rapid rise in blood sugar. In fact, you actually absorb glucose through your tongue also, so you can go straight from your tongue to your bloodstream. It doesn't even have to go down into your stomach. In response, the pancreas releases insulin, and the cells take the glucose to form energy and replace glycogen levels.
I mean, think about like when your kids have, they don't have anything else in their stomach and they come in and they want something sugary and they eat it. And then within like 20 minutes, they're climbing the walls, right?
Yeah, it works fast.
Like it is fast acting.
Well, that's
like
what it
watch
says.
yourself next
It
time
says
you take it
the
in.
sugar enters your bloodstream so quickly that it damages the arterial walls.
So think
and
about
it causes
that.
inflammation in your arteries.
So some of our children are eating this nonstop all day, every day.
Yeah.
What are they having for breakfast? What are they having for snacks? What are they having? I mean, even our kids, they're kids. They want, right? Those sugar cravings happen. They happen actually every time you eat sugar, you get another craving for it or carbs, right? It's how our body works. So it is so apparent when our kids have had over the amount of sugar that they should have. And especially if it's on an empty stomach, they're not so. And we've just began calling that out and going, do you see how you're acting? How do you feel right now? Like ask your kids in those moments. You should be asking yourself how you're feeling. Does this feel good? How soon am I going to crash? That's the other thing, right? It gives us an instant amount of energy.
Right.
But then the inevitable.
But the damage is done. It can lead to heart attacks. It can cause insulin resistance. To add insult to injury, eating simple carbohydrates shuts off fat burning by spiking insulin levels, and at the same time turns on fat production. So,
Mm,
even if you didn't eat a lot, you eat sugar, you still increase fat production.
right.
Bread, pasta, rice, candy, other things that taste sweet um, are the examples. And they recommend consuming carbohydrates with a glycemic index of 40 or less. So the glycemic index is a rating of carbohydrates that indicates how quickly they cause a spike in blood sugar. Low GI or glycemic index foods will keep you in fat burning state indefinitely by maintaining low insulin levels. So some of the high ones are bread, candy, cookies, and low glycemic index foods are fruits, unrefined grains, and non-starchy vegetables. Mistake number 2, neglecting portion control. I mean, I go, that's
This
pretty.
is so big.
It's also self-explanatory. Like, don't increase the size of stuff. Don't get the large or the extra
Yeah,
large.
but here's the problem is most of us don't know what we should be taking in anyway.
Yeah.
So if you don't know what you should be taking in and you don't know what your macros are, most of us go, what are macros? Right? We don't even know what that is. So how can we even possibly know what our portion sizes are? And please, let's not go by the United States portion sizes, because if you
Yeah.
go out to a restaurant, majority of them are going to give you the American portion size. And let's all face it, none of us need to eat that much.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, basically, don't eat till you're full. Stop eating before you're full. And one of the things it says is chew your food really slowly. Because when you scarf down your food really fast, you don't realize you're full until you've eaten too much. But when you chew your food really slow and eat slowly, you actually you give your brain time to check with your GI
You
tract.
should be the French when you eat, right?
Yeah.
Be the French. Be French.
Be French. Be relaxed and just enjoy the food. Taste it, savor it, enjoy it. It's really neat. We portion our foods now, and we count the macros and all that stuff, because we now each have a coach that tells us how to eat. And
How you bet?
It's pretty neat. But what I've noticed is I have this container full of food with chicken breast and some brown rice and broccoli or something. And it's a lot of food. And I look at it, and it's only 400 calories.
Yeah.
And I look at a burger that's less in size.
But
and it's
double in calories.
It's 800 calories. Yeah, exactly. A burger is like 800 to 1,000, depending on what you
do. Not get me started on the amount of fat.
You throw a bacon on that.
Yeah.
You add some mayonnaise to it.
Oh, it's so good. Who's getting hungry right now?
Now you're up to 1,200 calories in a burger, and you do need to wash it down with French fries and a soda.
Right.
So
now you're at about 2,200 at least.
For one meal.
For one meal, which, by the way, I'm not supposed to eat more than like 880 calories in a day, and that's with workouts. So
1,800.
1,800. What'd I say?
You said 800.
Oh, yeah, 1,800 and 80. So think about that, and that's with workouts and everything. But if you're not doing any of that stuff and you're sedentary most of the day,
right, and
2 meals out of your day you're eating burgers and they taste great and steaks, you've blown it that day,
Portion controls. Mistake number 3, not eating enough protein.
Yeah.
So he really attacks vegans with this one. I don't want to do that because we love our vegans.
Yes.
Make sure you get your protein.
Yeah.
You could stay vegan and get your protein.
Yeah, it's very important.
Make sure you're getting protein.
There's lots of great plant sources.
Because what happens, your body starts to break down your muscle tissue to get the amino acids to repair other tissues, and then you lose muscle. Muscle is very precious, and lack of muscle leads to aging. You age faster, your lifespan becomes less.
Well, if you're not careful, you lose muscle and bone, right? Which is also a big problem as we age.
Yeah. Now, one of the things is he talked about how being a neurologist, a neurosurgeon, he said head injuries are caused by people who don't eat enough protein.
Huh. That's interesting. I've never heard that before.
It was survival. Well, because they have less muscle.
Yeah.
And then survival rates are higher if they've had a head injury. He says the stronger do survive longer.
Well, we've always heard that. It does make sense, doesn't
Muscle is important to keep muscle. That's why we lift weights. So they recommend eating 0.75 grams of protein per pound of body weight. And if you do weight training, like aggressive weight training, you need 1 gram per pound of body weight. So someone who weighs 200 pounds, they should have, 150 to 200 grams of protein per day.
Yep.
Mistake number 4, avoiding fat altogether. Only fat in the presence of high insulin levels is bad for you. So when you eat sugar and fat, can you say donuts?
French fries don't have sugar, but
You could dip them in sugar.
Ugh.
Probably not a good idea.
French toast sticks. There you go.
Okay.
That's another one.
That's why I could only think of donuts. Eating fat with protein and with low glycemic index carbohydrates keeps insulin levels at bay and therefore does not turn off fat burning. In fact, it encourages your body to continue burning fat. Fat, particularly omega-3 and omega-9, is also important when it comes to reducing inflammation and combating the free radicals that can damage cell walls and accelerate the aging process. In fact, butter is anti-inflammatory. If you don't have a dairy issue, butter should be part of our diet. Now, you put butter on bread, that changes it. That's why Dave Asprey came out with bulletproof coffee, and he puts butter in his coffee in a blender.
Yep.
And that's his first meal
It
of
is
the
very
day.
tasty, people.
Well, yeah, and hey, don't just start doing it. You need to know the recipe, so please go
Yes.
look up
Do your
Dave
research.
Asprey. Do a search for bulletproof coffee if you want. I don't want to endorse them. We don't get anything for recommending this, but if you're interested in what is butter coffee, Bulletproof is a good source. Just go to Bulletproof Coffee, do a Google search, and I'm sure you'll find plenty of information about it. Eating fats will induce a satiety signal. Did I say that right? Satiety.
There you go.
Okay, that's better. To reduce the tendency to overeat. So it helps with overeating as well. So don't skip the fat. Now, I've seen, outside of this article, I've seen a lot of data where they took people who do like high fat, low carb diets and low fat, high carb diets. And so for the most part, they both get good results. It's the high fat, high carb that's really bad. But when they compared them head to head, they found that the high carb, low fat, not zero fat, high carb, low fat, did a better job of recompositioning the body into muscular. So if you want to be muscular, because one of the things he talks about is the concept of skinny fat. These are people who don't look, they're not overweight, but they have fat around their organs. They have visceral fat. They have fat around the abdomen, and they have fat in their arteries.
Well, part of the problem is a lot of dieting actually doesn't allow for building of muscle, right? And so it's geared only towards weight loss, not necessarily fat loss.
Yeah,
and
we're gonna
that's
talk
the
about
problem.
That's one. I
good.
think that's mistake number 10. Number 5, we're gonna fly through these because we're out of time. Number 5, not consuming enough vegetables. Vegetables have minerals and vitamins that are necessary. He does talk about using powdered vegetables. I don't think anything replaces the real thing.
Chewing is important.
But they're an excellent source of fiber as well. They help with gut bacteria, the gut microbiome. We know that when the bacteria in your gut is in balance, you have proper hormone levels, you have proper serotonin levels, your mood doesn't fluctuate, and your bowel movements are regular. So vegetables, huge. I'm going to skip ahead to number 6. Not getting enough fiber, which goes along with the vegetables. And he talks about fiber slows the rate that sugar is absorbed into the bloodstream. Same thing he said about fat, right? Fat and fiber reduce how fast sugar gets in the bloodstream. So that's why they say eat dessert after your dinner, not before. People eat dessert before, like, oh, let's do it backwards. Let's eat dessert first. All that sugar gets flooded into your bloodstream, damages your arteries, and now you put other food in there. But when there's already food in your stomach, now you can enjoy your dessert, and it's not going to spike your insulin in a bad way because it gets mixed with the fiber from the vegetables you ate with your dinner.
My assumption is doing that would also cause a discrepancy in the hormones being released at right
Yeah.
times too, which
Right.
we know is such a fine-tuned process.
That's right. Don't eat dessert. That's mistake number 11 from Dr. Amir. I'm adding one.
Good job.
I'm not a neurosurgeon, but I can add mistakes. I've done all of this. Fiber also lowers the risk of bowel cancer as toxins are shuttled through the GI tract quicker. So fiber basically takes all the bad stuff and pushes it along so it can
Yeah.
come out. So it doesn't sit in there because we absorb whatever sits in our intestines.
Yeah. Ugh.
Lettuce, broccoli, spinach are the recommended vegetables. Powdered fiber source. Psyllium husk is one. They talk about synthetic ones and over-the-counter medications, but there's natural ones like psyllium husk. There's other ones, but psyllium husk. The reason I remember this one is because a good friend of mine. We're gonna get a little graphic, but I think it's okay. A good friend of mine had shoulder surgery, and he said he couldn't reach behind him to wipe himself. So he started taking psyllium husk because he said it's clean when it comes out, and you don't have to wipe as much.
Because it's almost encapsulated. It's really funny.
But I tried psyllium husk, not for the same reason. I haven't had shoulder surgery, but it did increase bloating and gas.
I was going to say, it can do that. There are some
Yeah.
others that don't.
And psyllium is spelled with a P, I believe.
Yes.
P, silent P at the beginning. Number 7, drinking too much alcohol. Alcohol has empty calories. There's no physiologic benefits to them. And if you want to shed body fat, drinking alcohol will slow your efforts dramatically. Alcohol also interferes with blood sugar regulation via its negative effect on the liver. Insulin resistance can result, prediabetes can result, and you become obese, like a beer belly.
Right. But there are some benefits to red wine and things like that. So you also have to weigh the good with the bad. Didn't we read an article about that a few weeks ago? I feel like there was. If not, I read it and we didn't talk about it. But so there are some benefits to things like red wine, but then you have to go, okay, what's the risk versus the benefit according to what goals I'm trying to hit, right? So, and we always go back to the moderation, right?
Yeah,
Because we struggle with that as
drinking a
humans.
lot of alcohol is not good for you.
Correct, for many reasons.
Mistake number 8 is not drinking enough water.
Yep.
Adequate water consumption is often overlooked, particularly in older individuals who lose their thirst responses with age.
Wow. I didn't even think about
How
that.
interesting is that? Now, what's interesting is when you're dehydrated, your blood volume actually goes down.
Okay.
So your blood becomes thicker, more viscous. So that's dangerous too.
Yes.
And it can cause your blood pressure to go down, causing lightheadedness, and then people get dizzy and they fall. And
Very
especially if they're
interesting.
older, they don't experience thirst, they don't drink enough water. Like my mother and aunt, they're like, oh no, we can't drink water with our meals. It's bad for you, whatever. And thankfully, they still get their water
Yeah,
in.
they measure and they do drink outside of that.
But
which is
man,
really
when
good.
I'm eating, I get thirsty. I wonder if
Same.
they don't get thirsty.
It might be. But we do force
They're
them.
in their 70s. Yeah.
And I'm trying to drink a gallon every day. So
Yeah.
at least they're a little competitive. They're trying to keep up.
Yeah. So he says the seniors, the elderly fall because of dehydration and the medication they're on, over medication. So a lot of seniors are over medicated and they shouldn't be. That's an interesting concept.
If we had time, I'd tell you a story.
You should have 1 gallon of electrolyte laden water daily. So we put Himalayan salt in our water. When not every water that we drink, but when I go to the gym and I know I'm going to be working out for the next 90 minutes and I'm picking up heavy weights and I need the electrolytes, I actually put some Himalayan salt in the water with some amino acids, shake it up, and it's in my gym bag, and I drink that, and I drink about 2 liters while I'm working out because I sweat a lot. You can use powdered electrolytes and add a packet or 2 to each gallon. We're really running late here, but we're going to finish it real quick. Mistake number 9 is eating late at night. And he doesn't say eating late because of the time, but so I've never seen anyone say why we shouldn't eat really late at night. But he talks about how you should eat your biggest food in the morning to give you energy for the day. And then in the evening, you cut back on the carbohydrates and need more of the protein and the fat because your metabolism's already slowing down at the end of the day. So you don't want to put a lot of food in at the end of the day.
Interesting.
And that's what he says. Big breakfast, smaller dinner, Consume the majority of your carbohydrates in the morning hours or early afternoon. Personally, I don't do that. And when I eat a zero carb dinner, usually I don't sleep as well.
Yeah.
So I like to have some carbs in my dinner.
I do think balance is super important. I'm seeing that just in my own journey.
Yeah.
Is that keeping the macros consistent across, and maybe, some changes like before and after workouts, but for the most part, keeping them consistent has kept my energy consistent,
Yeah.
which has been really nice.
Final mistake. Mistake number 10. Engaging in extreme dieting. The weight returns with a vengeance.
Yeah, I think most of us have
You
experienced
can
that.
lose a ton of weight in a short period of time with extreme dieting, but guess what? You can't hold it off. It pops back, and it comes back in a big way. Extreme diets not only are poor long-term solutions, but they also decimate one's metabolism due to the severe resultant muscle loss. Again, preserve your muscle.
So important.
Fat loss should be slow, and every effort made to preserve precious muscle at all costs. And bodybuilders know this really, really well because they want to keep the muscle and then start to burn the fat. And what they typically do is they go, okay, my metabolism is now used to, let's just pick a number, 2,500 calories a day, and I want to lose a little fat, so I need to be in a deficit. So if my body needs 2,500 to maintain weight, I'm going to go down to 2,200, 2,300. I'm going to just cut a couple hundred calories a day, and I'm going to keep it at that. I'm going to watch the scale, and I'll see my weight start to come down, and then I'll wait till it hits a full plateau. That means my metabolism has now gone down. I've lost some fat, constantly checking body fat percentages, looking at yourself in the mirror, making sure you're looking right, you're not losing too much, then you cut a little more. So anyways, I think bodybuilders know what they're doing, and they do a good job. Some of the bodybuilders I've met are smarter than most doctors I know.
They've got a lot of knowledge. While a lot of it's self-taught, a lot of it is also experiential, which you cannot, you can't combat that.
There's value in experience.
So much value.
Tremendous.
So
anyways, shout out to all the bodybuilders out there. Maybe you're
Woohoo!
watching. I'd appreciate that if you could comment and say a few things. Maybe we'll have you on the show sometime. You can teach us a
Absolutely.
little more about fat loss, because really you're the expert. So sorry this ran so long.
Hopefully you guys found it valuable. There was some great content.
We started out with an embryo that was made in a lab. That
That's
was
right.
interesting. Flesh-eating bacteria, and then the 10 mistakes. So we've got a great one coming up next time as well. So make sure you look for that next week. We're going to talk about a couple of things about the CDC, COVID, which is making a resurgence, vaccination protocols and suggestions and things like that. So you're gonna want to be there for that. So take care. God bless you. Thank you for watching, listening, and all of that. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking these videos and recommending them and sharing them. We appreciate you greatly.
See you next time.